Hey, Joe Zarzaur here with Dr. Malone to talk to you about a really important medical condition that sometimes forms the basis of a medical malpractice case, but sometimes we just want to bring to you this information because it's important for you to know as the public to be aware of these different conditions. Today's topic is Vibrio. I'm going to call it Vibrio. Dr. Malone may call it something more fancy than that, but basically this is an infection that you can get from salt or brackish water. And obviously we have plenty of that in Florida. And the reason this is important right this second is that because of Hurricane Ian, there have been almost a 30 times increase in reported cases in Lee County of this Vibrio infection. And the reason is that there's a lot more people obviously walking around and doing things in standing water, standing brackish or salt water. And because of that, the infection rate for Lee County went up 30 times its normal reporting. And they actually issued a statement to all the physicians in the state of Florida at the 1st of October, October the 7th or so, making every physician in the state of Florida aware that you need to be looking for this possibility, because if you get Vibrio, 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 cases is fatal within the first 24 or 48 hours unless it's treated appropriately. It's also a limb-threatening condition where you can lose your limb in the same amount of time if it's not treated appropriately. So it's really important for physicians and medical professionals to be aware of this condition. Dr. Malone, what symptoms do people need to be looking for if they've been in water and they have an open wound? It can even be a tiny little scab type cut.
A little like a little shaving cut, basically.
Right.
So Vibrio infection, the kinds you hear about in the summer are someone ate bad oysters, okay? So that's where you ingest it and it gets into your system that way. The stuff that Joe just talked about is typically it's wounds, so open wounds in this contaminated water. How do you know if it's contaminated? Because it's in our area, it likely has Vibrio in it because of the weather, the temperatures, and the combination of the brackish water, okay? As far as symptoms to watch out for, it's basically cellulitis, which is red swelling, okay? Abnormal girth of one extremity versus the other, where, hey, this leg looks wider than the other one. But the hallmark is blood blisters, okay? They'll call them hemorrhagic bulla. They're blood blisters, okay? So
how quickly after you're exposed to this do you get the blood blister?
It can be like you go to bed one night, you wake up the next morning, you have them, okay? So it can be 12, 24 hours. And if you have the blood blisters and the swelling and you have had exposure to
salt
water, brackish water, it can even be the sand on the beach, okay? I'm not saying don't go in the sand, but the sand's wet, okay? So it can be those kind of settings. So if you're helping someone out and you catch your leg on something, you think, oh, it's not a big deal. The next one you realize you got a little cut and it looks like it's red and angry and there's some blood blisters, that is very likely Vibrio, okay? And it's scary because, yeah, the people in Lee County following a hurricane, they don't have an option but to be in the standing water trying to...
We've done that here after Hurricane Ivan.
Trying to recover, help loved ones, get their home situation secure, things like that. That is something they need to do, but there are precautions to take to limit yourself from injury in those waters. If you are injured, keep the wound clean. Maybe you need to avoid the water from now on. And then if you have other conditions, so if you're diabetic, if you have liver disease, if you have if you take medications that would, hinder your immune system, any of those kind of things, or you've had cellulitis in the past and you have other wounds, things like that, you're the last person that should be jumping into this water. You should have other people to help you with that. But if you have these, you need to make sure you report them to your provider. So go in there and tell them, I was in water, okay? I have this blood blister. That way it gets treated the right way. The doctors are only as good as information they're provided. They need to elicit the right information, but you need to tell them the whole story.
Oh, and you also need to be your advocate, because many times doctors don't diagnose this, even with the blisters. So if you feel like you're not being diagnosed properly, go to a different ER and ask a different doctor about those blisters and these symptoms. Don't just take, if you feel like you're not getting proper care at one facility, don't just take it as gospel and go home and go to sleep, because you could have this Vibrio. We want somebody to look at it from the standpoint of, is this Vibrio or not? And if a practitioner just sort of glosses over that and you feel like that they glossed over it too quickly, don't hesitate to go to a different facility and a different physician to get another opinion.
Yeah, I'll add one other thing that was reminded to these physicians all over the state, and this is something that I was trained in, is if there's a suspicion, you treat for Vibrio and work backwards. So you prove it later on that, hey, I proved myself it was Vibrio, but I'm glad I started treatment when they walked in the door.
And the reason they do that is because it's fatal within 24 to 48 hours or limb threatening within in that same period.
So if the answer is come back in a day or follow us up, that's probably not the right answer. Okay, so like Joe said, you got to be your own advocate. Yeah.
If you have other questions about Vibrio or any other medical malpractice or personal injury topic that we've discussed, you can find us on the web at zarzaurlaw.com. We're going to post these materials underneath the video. If you have questions about Vibrio specifically, you can contact us the same way. You can always call us at 855-HIRE-JOE. Thank you.